The Inspired Insights podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered health advice. This podcast is not intended to replace professional medical advice.
Please note that this podcast may contain discussions on sensitive topics such as mental illness, suicide, and substance use. If you are experiencing a behavioral health crisis or need support, please contact the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling 988 or visiting www.988lifeline.org. Welcome back, folks.
Hi.
Hey, everyone.
Yeah,
Hi.
another episode of the Inspired Insights podcast.
Pride edition.
Indeed, indeed.
Happy Pride, everyone.
Happy Pride. Also, happy International Women's Day.
Yeah.
That is today. I found that out.
Yeah.
After, the all women's jiu-jitsu class this morning. So happy International
you
Women's
are
Day.
a
Happy Pride.
Fascinating person. All right, we'll get there.
Okay. So we have two lovely guests. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Absolutely. I'm Betsy Lundy. I'm the Executive Director of the Downtown Bangor Partnership.
Yay.
And I'm Bobby Jean Garceau, or BJ as most people know me. I work locally in a hospital here full-time. I am the board of directors for a lot of type 1 diabetes communities, and I'm also on the board for Bangor Pride, which is going to be the best one yet this year.
And I can't wait to talk about it. I can't wait to talk about it. Well, thank you both for being here. This is such an important topic, especially now. So I really just thank you for being here and being willing to, being willing to
We
talk.
love you guys. We love the podcast, and I love the fact that you bring light to subjects that, whether I'm working professionally or in small business, that are subjects that can be real touchy right now.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing light to our community here in Bangor
Thanks.
and having us.
Soren has yet to believe that people actually are listening to the podcast and that it's making a difference.
It is.
It makes a difference.
Even if one person hears it, it makes a difference. So we have to remember
But
that.
I guarantee you there's more than one.
Yeah. 7.
Yeah. I think we're on 8 now. so-
8. You maybe got 8. Yeah. Well, thank you both. I'm excited to have this conversation. So one of the reasons why Soren and I wanted to have you both here is to just talk about the importance of resilience and allyship and pride. And there's some changes with Pride this year. And so it's also a good opportunity to let some of our local listeners know that there's some big stuff going. Pride is still happening, bigger than ever before.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about sort of the role that Downtown Bangor is going to play with this year's?
Sure, yeah. I was telling Soren before we got started that Downtown Bangor has always been, well, it's obviously the home of Pride, right?
Mhm.
That like most of the Pride activities, obviously the festival parade happen in downtown. There's some really important, both positive and tragic events related to the LGBTQ plus community in Bangor that have kind of, I think, solidified downtown Bangor as like a core place for Pride.
And you're
right?
talking about Charlie Howard's death, and Soren and I actually did a visit to the memorial downtown and did some photos there before. So yeah, Charlie Howard is an absolute, just a tragic story that unfortunately is a sort of stain on Bangor's history around LGBTQ acceptance. And
yeah, absolutely. And I think in some ways, like the fact that, the festival and the parade and the rainbow walkways there, those are all things I think that kind of maybe were born out of that to a certain extent,
I think you're right.
that I do think that at that moment in time, it was much more okay, to be anti-gay. And I think when people saw what that can translate into, it really helped the communities start to rally around and create that sense of allyship in a way that has grown over time, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think that like everybody was overnight like, okay, now I'm a supporter, but I think it opened doors and conversations. I know when I talked to my parents about it, it certainly impacted them, like, considerably, and changed the way that they thought about things. And just watching their mental evolution over time has been really fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, I, as somebody who grew up locally to this area, '84, like that stands out in my mind as something like that was a thing. And I remember the punchlines and the jokes and
We
just
watched it actually in my high school class. When my English teacher was brave enough, and it was Old Town, which I know that north of Orono is very liberal. You may love them over there, but in Old Town, we watched a video on it, and it was just amazing to me because I know there's people still living in that community that actually almost praised like this crime, like this person for just existing, doing that. And on the side note of it, being someone who didn't even dare to come out of the closet while I was in high school, even though everyone knew my best friend was my girlfriend. Like, you know, and she was amazing. But it was one of those things. I just remember watching the video and hearing the comments, which made me just want to like shrivel up, and things like that. But now it's like I know that with that unfortunate event, though, how, and pun intended, how proud he would be of where we are as a community, showing that we're not going to back down. That we're not going to hide away, and we're not going to be scared. We're gonna kill them with kindness. And show them that we're not doing anything wrong. We just want to celebrate love and acceptance.
And as also an Old Town grad, I don't know if you knew that.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it?
I like being in, I think probably middle school at that time. But it was.
I was 8 and 4.
10. We're not. I was 10.
But so kind of like circling back to the original conversation there about like, you know, like, so downtown, I mean, it's like, it's just steeped in the culture here, you know, downtown, that there's this conversation, you know, about it. And so the Downtown Bangor Partnership, which has been around since 1988, has always been a supporter of Pride in various ways. Like a lot of that has come like through like, you know, marketing support and promotion, or helping execute events, or providing information connection, that sort of thing. And last year, Orion and Ethan were organizing Pride, and when they met with us, they said, you know, we were kind of put on notice that Heal is not going to have the capacity to do Pride next year, and we kind of need like a parent organization to help us with kind of the infrastructure pieces, and would Downtown Bangor be interested? And I was like, yes, absolutely. And we were like, okay, cool. We'll like reconvene after Pride is over, like talk about it. And then of course they moved away. And so I was just kind of like, okay, like I don't really know where to go with this, because again, like a major philosophy of the Downtown Bangor Partnership is that we don't want to co-opt events that really belong to other communities and like take them on and be like, we're going to do them for you, you know, because we really feel like it has to come from there. So, you know, we kind of kicked it around a little bit at the committee level and at the board level. And then I reached out to Josh D'Alessio at Heal and said, hey, just, you know, this is where the conversation was left with Ethan. And he was like, oh my God, that would be so helpful. Like, I really would love for you guys to do that, because we literally cannot do it again this year. And I was like, cool, fine, whatever. Like literally the next day, like the Pride committee was like, and we're doing Pride on our own. And I was like, all right, cool. And so then, you know, we started, you know, conversations with the two Sams, like they were the first ones.
They're great.
They're really wonderful. And, you know, we're just kind of like, okay, like, what is it exactly that you need?
What
and
do you need? Yeah.
Yes. And like, for them, it was like, okay, we know what we want it to be, but we need, you know, a nonprofit that can handle the financial aspect of it, right? The money in, the money out piece of things, that can get, you know, insurance, that can, you know, kind of talk us through the less fun side of it. You know, when I first joined the Downtown Bangor Partnership, I was a board member, and I was like, oh, events are so fun. But then what you realize is that it's all like less, you're like, oh, insurance and like.
So
the behind the
you,
scenes.
well,
So
that
much work to bring these events to life.
100%. And that was my inspired insight for our week for this episode, is that folks have no idea what it takes, whether it's a day-long event, a 4-hour meeting, or a multi-day conference, the amount of just energy and resources and details that go into making this stuff the thing that it is. And my inspired insight is, make sure you thank an organizer. Make sure you're just taking 2 seconds to say, that parade was awesome. Thank you for putting that on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so key, because it is really easy to forget that the majority of the people who are doing the work are volunteers, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And we work full-time jobs. Like, I mean,
Yes.
I work a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, but it's just such
And
a
you're a kung fu
passion.
fighter.
Yeah.
It is one of those things, though, and we have to realize that, like, everything from the security at the concerts, like,
Yeah.
or the
Yeah.
background, the sound check people, or things like that. And it's just one of those things, like, we need to realize that there's a lot of work put in here, and outside of and we're taking time away from our family lives. We're taking
That's
time
right.
away from this because we want to put on events in the best way we can. But people tend to forget, like even me, we're trying to organize a 5K. I call it the Wicked Gay 5K.
Yeah.
It just makes me
Yes.
express to wear short shorts.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping we can hook up with Happy Endings because Melissa's really good with
The 5
with
days.
planning that and with the
Yeah.
gym. But anyway, point being is, but then finding out we need insurance, city permits. You can't just like show up and go running around
Right.
in traffic because
Right.
and these things. And I was like talking to Bangor Parks and Rec, who have been fantastic,
Awesome.
and I was just like, insurance to go running?
Yeah.
What?
Yep.
Right.
So, so thank you for bringing that up. Like
Yeah.
even myself working in these other fields, like thank you for working with us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean that's it takes a lot of like really unfun
So unfun.
stuff
So
to
unfun.
make a fun experience. And it takes a special kind of person to want to take
Excuse me.
on that workload, right?
Yeah.
Like and I will say too, just organizations across the board are kind of like our volunteer base is like shrinking. So you have like less and less people, lifting more and
That's
more,
right.
Yeah.
stuff, and you always want to make your thing bigger than it was last year. But if you don't have kind of the community
Right.
support, like I know for Pride, the biggest thing is going to be volunteers on the parade
Absolutely.
route. Like
Yeah.
that is like, you need so many people to make sure that, the vehicles are spaced evenly,
Right.
safely, and that, nobody's
Yeah.
running onto the road. Like there's just like the lift is so hard on a parade.
That's
And,
right.
Yeah.
I think about that all the time with like Festival of Lights parade and in 4th of July parade
Yeah.
too. Like there are just so many people who give
Yeah.
up their time to come out there so that like other folks can stand on the
Yeah.
sidelines and be like, yay,
Yeah. Well, I
know?
think there's an assumption that public safety, like our
Right.
friends in the police force, they're doing that.
Mhm.
No,
They
they're
can't,
not.
and they
No.
can't.
Yeah.
So
busy.
that, yeah. We'll come back to some of this. Soren, inspired insight for the episode.
My inspired insight is kind of off topic, but it does have to do with pride and our identity as a community. So as I've journeyed through my like exploration of my identity, I have found that I have decreased my reliance on labels significantly.
Yeah.
Like in my youth, as I was like exploring my gender identity and exploring what my sexual orientation was, I didn't really need to explore that much. It was kind of just there. But I relied on labels so heavily to identify myself and feel like my experience was valid.
Mhm.
But as I've become increasingly comfortable with my identity and how I present, and how I interact with the world regarding matters of sexual orientation and gender, I have sort of withdrawn from the labels
Yeah.
that I previously used, and I've stopped talking about it as like a concrete formalized thing. And I think that has allowed me to identify with the community rather than myself as an individual within it. And I
Yeah.
think that is increasingly important as queer individuals are persecuted as individuals, that we stand united as a front. And part of breaking down some of those barriers can be, I think, putting less emphasis on the importance of labels.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think that's a generational piece? Because I know you and I have talked about this a lot, that folks your age are really
Oh, okay.
embracing.
I'm 17.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I actually was assuming you were probably mid like 20s. You're pretty
No.
much-
Oh, why, thank you.
Yeah, I love that.
No, folks your age seem to be really embracing that non-binary piece around both sexual orientation and gender, where my generation, like we needed the word,
Yeah.
we needed the label, and maybe there was some safety in calling it something, and folks your age don't seem to need that.
I think, honestly, for me at least, labels were like a matter of validity and asserting myself as a thing that is existing
Right.
in a
Almost like a
concrete,
badge.
as a badge.
Yeah.
It's a way to show others that I exist as a part of a group that actually is real.
Right.
Like my
Yeah.
experience is valid.
Right.
Absolutely.
But now I think queer individuals, at least in certain circles, obviously it's becoming increasingly difficult for queer individuals to exist.
Yeah.
But in certain circles, it just is.
Yeah.
It's not something that needs to be announced or defined. It is simply a part of the social milieu,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I even think the word queer.
I was just gonna say
I
that.
mean,
Yeah,
I think,
like-
like it is used so much because it's has that amorphous quality.
Yeah,
to it,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But when we were growing up,
Nope.
No.
you know, like you.
No.
Well,
Yeah.
I had 2 older brothers, and again, growing up in the backwoods of Greenbush,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like they threw around the F word, and
All
I
the
mean,
time.
I
Yeah.
don't even want to say it out loud,
Right.
but
Yeah.
I remember like having MTV on, and they'd be like, even though my brother was a Magic Johnson fan who had HIV,
Yeah.
but however, if someone in our community had it, they got it, they deserved it.
That's
things like
right.
that. But because
Mm.
Magic Johnson was having sex with all these women
Right.
and a basketball player, it was cool.
Yeah.
But and they would look at like gay people on TV and be like.
Yeah.
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 And that was the household like I grew up in. It's just one of those things like we didn't dare to say certain words. And I remember even now like admitting like I felt with badges you either had to be gay or that. And I'm bisexual. My
Yeah.
wife is bisexual.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that it's taken me years because of the stigma we had growing up. Because people would be like, you can't be both, and things like that. But now, and thanks to your generation,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
helping us get rid of those labels. Like I'm very comfortable admitting that I'm attracted to both sexes.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
fell in love with a woman I want to spend the rest of my life with.
Yeah.
And thank you for your generation for allowing us to get rid of such,
rigid boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we've talked about this all the time. Like it's probably been, well, actually probably in my relationship with you that I spent more time thinking about the word queer and finding an enhanced amount of comfort because of
right.
the connotations when we were younger.
Yeah.
But really, like I don't love the label thing either. I think those
Yeah.
labels can divide us more than unite us sometimes,
Absolutely.
especially with what's going on with trans and non-binary
Yeah.
folks. So this idea of queer being everything else, I
Mhm.
kind of dig that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
Me too.
And
too.
I think human behavior and experience is so diverse
Yeah.
Yes.
that by attempting to fit a like set group of labels onto it, you are sort of minimizing those experiences
Yeah.
and limiting individuals to a set of behavioral patterns, right?
Well, remember, as the clinical social worker, you and I have also talked about those labels of depression, anxiety, bipolar,
Or even diabetic.
or in the
overweight,
medical
or,
world,
like,
right?
You have these labels that follow you around.
There's something a little too pathological and a
Mhm.
little too that diagnostic piece of these labels. And we all know that there were times not that long ago where homosexuality was a mental health diagnosis,
Mhm.
The DSM.
gender identity disorder.
Yeah.
That these pieces were meant to divide and this pathological view of our identities.
Yeah.
So all the more reason that I've been, even as a clinician, gravitating more towards queer, non-binary, and not labeling it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too, like part of queerness is deconstructing social norms, right?
Right.
We are actively attempting to sort of abstract reality
That's right.
and pull people away from like concrete ideas around gender and concrete ideas around sexual orientation. And when we then replace those concrete ideas with separate concrete ideas, ultimately we're making progress, but not really,
Yeah.
right?
As well, we're replacing one just to create another.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Yeah. Inspired insights for the two of you.
Yes.
How about you go first?
I want to like change mine after this conversation
know.
already. Can I switch it up?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I was gonna do something completely different, but just all this talking about like pride and identity and things like that, it has me thinking about this thing with my kids where
You're a mom?
yeah,
Oh, wow.
yes,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I've
You
got
got your daughter at the
three
airport.
birth babies and 3 stepkids.
Good for
Yeah.
Yes, it's a kind of wild and crazy modern Brady bunch.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, so all the time, like they are always talking about, or I mean, they're not always talking about, but they like have these accomplishments that they do,
Mhm.
right?
Mm.
And like, I always want to say I'm proud of you, but I'm actually really trying to shy away from that and be like, you must be so proud of yourself,
Yeah.
and really like foster that sense of like pride coming
Internalizing
from
it.
like
Internally,
within,
yeah.
right? Like it's just like, and I do think it relates to pride, as in like, you know,
Yeah.
like the Pride Festival and stuff like that, and like it being an opportunity that's, because sometimes I do think that people think it's about being showy to others rather than showing yourself, right?
Right.
And it's really, I think that's what it is about, because you know, if you have a booth there, I don't know, have you ever worked a booth there before or anything, like at the Pride Festival?
I have at
You're
the
like-
music festivals and stuff.
You're like static,
Yeah.
and all the folks are just coming by
Yeah.
you all day long, and like
Yeah.
everybody is just like letting every flag fly.
Yeah.
Yes,
Like
yes.
there are no two people the same. Like
No.
whatever
Mm.
your jam is, like you got it on full display,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it isn't about like gathering something from somebody else so much as it is like this day where you come out and show the world who you are.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. I think
Yeah.
I and me and Chris both have talked a lot about in previous episodes this idea of deriving like social gratification,
Mhm.
not externally but internally.
Yeah.
And I think Pride is beautiful, not because it is a display of queer identities to people outside of the queer community, but rather because it is an opportunity
Right.
for queer individuals to show themselves to themselves,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Like really exist as an individual, and just let it all loose, right?
Yeah.
Which is what you were
and like
pointing at.
test the boundaries,
Test.
even like
Yeah,
like
totally.
how far am I into this or that or whatever? Like
Right.
you're just really putting it all out
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every June, I talk with a young person, inevitably, who it's their first Pride,
Yes.
and even just wearing that T-shirt or those colors or the
Mhm,
flag
mhm.
around there, you see they're
Yes.
standing a little bit taller. Their
Yes.
shoulders are a little bit more relaxed. Like for many of the young people in our community, it's the first time, and it's the first time they've seen others. So that representation piece,
Mhm.
community. We spend a lot of time talking about community building.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the one downside of us not having a gay bar anymore. in
I
Bangor,
know.
Is like
Well-
you could walk into like it was kind of cool at first because it's like
Yeah.
you know like everybody's all hanging out together, but then you also lose this sense of like you walk in and you have an idea that everybody's on the same page as you.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
like,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Well, I always wonder the folks that are saying that, like, we don't need a gay bar because they're not gay.
yeah.
Right.
They're not
right,
queer,
right.
right? So
Yeah.
why don't you ask the queer folks in your community what we would
Yeah.
like, and whether it's a bar, a bookstore,
Yeah.
a coffee shop.
All the above.
I
Right.
absolutely miss having a space that
Yes.
is ours,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
I feel, however, though, obviously politics have changed.
Yeah,
And
right.
as you were stating, that our community is kind of, we're shying away more
Yeah.
because of certain things and all the things online about transgender and especially what's going on in the state of Maine. I remember working at alternative bars, and then I felt like we accepted it so much we didn't need those bars anymore.
Yeah,
Like I wasn't as like I felt proud to hold my wife's hand anywhere I went.
yeah,
And I just
Mhm.
felt like we like meeting people that we kind of shied away from it because I felt like we were more accepting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like 5-6 years ago, where kind of
That's
we
true.
felt like we didn't need, but now we need those spaces
Yeah.
again because of where
Yeah.
we're taking such a shift.
and
Also,
I think
too, where I thought you were going to go with that, like you know, like when you're saying like we don't need it, I was thinking like I thought you were going to say because you were married, but like
No.
it's like a like.
we need it more because we're like,
Okay, all
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say, like, if you are a single gay person in this
Yeah.
Like,
community,
you don't know where you
like,
Yeah.
you know, like, and you are in like any like bar or restaurant or
Mhm.
whatever, like, it might be hard for you to identify, like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
who is a potential in your
I-
dating pool.
Yeah.
I
Thank
was
goodness for
gonna
Tinder.
comment
Right.
on that.
Oh, Tinder. See, I'm so old. I guess.
Yeah, I know. No, I've never been on.
Yeah,
Tinder,
let me
so.
just offer this though. I don't feel like we need more queer spaces in town because of acceptance from straight folks.
Right.
We need more queer spaces in town for other queer folks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where
Like,
we can meet people like us.
100%,
Yeah,
and be
Just grab
out and
coffee.
seen and modeling
Mhm.
that we are living our lives. just like all the other straight places around us.
Well, my wife and I actually had a conversation today in the car, and I don't know if I can count this as my insight, but it was just how basic we are and how our marriage is not threatening to anybody. Like literally, we are the couple that sits on the couch. And I'm like, babe, did you just let the dog out? It's like 20 degrees out.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to let the dog out. Like, we're not.
Welcome to
having
our nightly
these-
conversations.
Like,
Yeah.
like we're not having wild sex parties.
Yeah.
We're paying taxes. We're working hard. Like when we were driving to an ice skating event, and we were just that basic married couple. Like,
100%.
if we were not a woman and a woman, people would not even bat an eye at us. They would probably actually be like, this is the ideal American couple.
Yep.
Like right here.
Yep.
But because we're two women, and we both work in healthcare, we're successful, we do a lot for our community, but we were driving in the car today, and so we were just like, how are we hurting anybody?
Right.
You know, we're not like, like, how is our sexual identity?
In some ways, that gets to what my inspired insight was going to be, which is that people need to care
Like
less about more and more about less, right? Like,
Yeah.
so,
We'll
like,
share
if
the
you're,
insight. That's what we'll share.
Yeah.
But then and it goes to your insight too. Is like you were talking about getting rid of labels, because when I am with my wife, I don't think of us as a gay couple. I just think of us as a married couple.
Right. Right.
Like she's my emergency contact, and unfortunately, I'm hers.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Right. This
like-
idea that gay marriage
Right, like-
is a different thing
and it's
than
like,
marriage.
it's just a marriage.
Right.
Like, come on. Like, and I get we need our labels, but like we were just literally in the car on 202, driving to Alpine Arena,
Yeah.
like going ice skating, and I was like, did you do your taxes yet? Yes. And I was like, and then we just started making jokes about like the low percentage of transgender athletes, and
Right.
she's like, oh no, transgenders are going to ruin sports.
Yeah.
And then we just kept sarcastically punning about how, really, why are people so threatened
Yeah.
by our community? And we're very thankful for like downtown Bangor, because that's where I met my wife, and just always be,
Oh, yeah.
she made my coffee.
Aw.
And it was one of those things that downtown has always been such a big staple in allowing me to be comfortable with who I am. So thank you, downtown Bangor, and the community and the small businesses and things like that. Because
Yeah.
I'm in my 40s, and I remember going to my first Pride. It changed, like you said, I stood a little bit taller, and I stood a little bit more proud. So
Yeah.
so and we have to remember those things.
100%.
That and one thing also on top of that, I remember, because I've marched with I used to work for Penobscot Community Healthcare,
Yep.
a great nonprofit organization, and Lori Dwyer, the
President.
big-
Yeah.
and she marched with us last year.
Yeah.
And like, we know you're straight and stuff like that, but she was just so supportive. Like, I think I may have been the only me and one other gay person, and then 10 other people from
Yeah.
PCHC who were just there to support us.
Yeah.
And show
Yeah.
their face. And I was just like, this person makes more money than I will ever see. She's a lawyer. She's way more educated than my dumb Greenbush ass.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm just like, and here we are shooting the shit, like talking,
Yeah.
and we're best friends. And she's just like, yes, I'm here to support my community.
I think
And
for
I
me,
just
that's
felt so good there.
and that's a piece of pride, right? It's sort of, there's a great equalization that happens, whether it's members of the community or our allies.
Yeah.
Folks are folks.
Yeah.
And all that other stuff just kind of gets checked at the car as you're heading to the parade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were going to ask a question, I think.
I was just, when you said earlier that you and your wife were like the ideal American couple, which is fantastic, good for you guys. And
Well, I mean, just what I know by stereotypes.
well,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
like,
obviously.
you make money, you pay, and I
Yeah.
guess, like, and that may change, but
And
like if you put it on paper, we instead of kids, we have dogs.
Yeah.
I think me, as sort of like a radical revolutionary child, right, is more in favor of a complete rejection of the social ideology and like the nuclear family, which has resulted in persecution of queer individuals.
Yeah.
Like, we have so much social schema around and expectations that exist as prerequisites outside of even queer identity.
Mhm.
And for me, I think that the social fabric that we have is extremely cumbersome.
Yeah.
And like, even if you were having crazy sex parties, are you hurting anybody?
Exactly.
No.
I mean, I was kind of disappointed.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm old.
Yeah.
I'm old.
I'm
Like,
older.
what I did in my 20s is none of our concern anymore. Enjoy your 20s, by the way.
Yeah.
yeah, like,
Still going back.
I don't know. I just feel like, I think part of queerness for me is a rejection
Yeah.
of the concrete social fabric
Of the
that we have
established.
around us.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is inherently a revolutionary experience
Yeah.
as we sort of attempt to defy social norms.
And I know that you know what I'm about to say, but just to again go on record, that's why they fear us.
Yes.
Well,
Because
and
we-
exactly, and that's why I wanted to make the statement that we are very boring. Like,
Yeah.
like I said,
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
like I trust me. Like, have fun, do your things. If you're not hurting someone else or causing harm to others
Yeah.
and doing things, and I agree with what your statement about that too. But I also wanted to share my experience because people have this idea that we are doing these crazy things
Yeah.
because we are in same-sex relations. At least, like, just them the
The
comments.
reality is you probably are, but straight people are too.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hear more about like my friends who are straight and the stuff
Yeah.
they're doing. I'm
I
like,
mean, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, people go through phases.
I say
like,
explore
across
your
the board.
sexuality. Like,
Yeah.
I love it.
The best way to turn society against one another is develop an other.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
today, queer folks, especially trans non-binary folks, are the other. And
So
it's
silly.
not lost on me that the target of these attacks are young people who are rejecting the norms and the
Mhm.
establishments
Mhm.
that the older folks make a lot of money off of.
I agree.
Yes.
And I think the underlying assumption that is like sort of the basis of conservatism as an ideology is that normal is good, right? What is currently happening is inherently beneficial. And I spent a lot of time reinforcing in my mind that no, the normal is not fantastic.
What is the normal for you when you state that? I'm just curious.
A patriarchal capitalistic society in which individuals are encouraged to maximize their fiscal benefit by commodifying their own labor.
Yeah.
Um,
So
very
exactly
interesting.
what's happening right now. Right. Yeah.
Big words, big words.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
Welcome,
but like
welcome to Soren.
this is more my broader critique of capitalism as an economic system. But
Yeah. Yeah. But I think, Soren, what you're saying, though, is that
That's a great statement, by the way.
Yeah.
we are sort of, well, I'll speak for myself. Like, my husband and I often say, this isn't normal. Like,
We do too.
we see things on TV, we read what's happening today isn't normal.
No.
But your point is, history is repeating itself. This
Yeah.
has played out.
Mhm.
As a student of history, as you are, I think your perspective is this is pretty normal.
this
It's-
is exactly what's happened hundreds of times
Right.
over thousands of
Right.
years, right? Like there is nothing unique about what is happening in America right now. And there is nothing unique about the persecution of minorities, right? It
Right.
is what humans will do when they are attempting to maintain power,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And every human in power is trying to maintain it.
Yeah.
No, you're
So
absolutely right.
how to then, for your perspectives, resilience is a giant protective factor, right? We know
Right.
that. We've talked about this. What does resilience look like in 2025 in the context of Pride? Like, why is this year's Pride so pivotal?
I mean, I can speak as a parent on the subject of, and as a former teacher on the subject of resilience. Like this other man and I founded this school in Boston. It was amazing. And when one time we were just sitting around trying to be like, okay, like what actually makes a kid successful in this school? And we were like,
Right.
grit,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
grit, I think, really translates into resilience. It's somebody who faces a challenge and instead of folding up and going away, which is, in the context of Pride, I think what
Yeah.
people would hope is that,
Mhm.
like, as a society, we're facing a challenge right now, and they're hoping that everybody that is viewed as a threat will fold up and go away. But what you actually need is that grit or that resilience, and you need to like dig in and be like, I'm still here.
Right.
Like, like
Yeah.
I'm still gonna have my parade, and I'm still gonna wear my rainbow outfit or my
Right.
fox ears or whatever your thing is,
Or
right?
my
Like,
crown.
yeah, your
Yes.
crown,
Right.
right? Like, don't let anybody steal the crown.
Right.
Right? Like
But yeah, I
Billie
mean
Eilish.
that's just it, and it doesn't even have to be like resilience isn't necessarily like actively fighting against something.
Right.
It's just like pulling together in the core of who you are.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
it's that internal versus external.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
What about for
And
you?
for me, and being a member of the Pride community and things like that, is I'm just going to piggyback what you said. even with my studying of martial arts, I've realized that we need to kill them with kindness.
Yeah.
It's like there's an old saying that it's better to be a gardener, a warrior in a garden, than a gardener in war.
Yeah.
And what that means is
Yeah.
better to have skills with you in a peaceful element. And the reason why we need Pride is because we are a target right now.
Mhm.
Like when you cannot open up our daily news whether and see whether comments about the transgender community or things like that, and just like there was literally a what did they have, like a rally against Janet Mills,
Mhm.
and it's just one of those things is we are the minority again, and we need something to show people, and we're not doing it in a hurtful fashion. We're just showing them that we're going to continue marching. We're going to continue being proud of who we are.
Yeah.
We're not
Yeah.
hurting anybody.
Yeah.
We're not threatening you. If anything, we're going to make you happier. We're going to show you
Yeah.
what love
Yeah.
looks like and things like that.
Yeah.
And also, with that being said, too, is that we have each other's backs, and I feel like very safe. I know that there was an article released in the Bangor Daily a few days ago. Someone said, like, do you feel they didn't feel safe?
Yeah.
Did you read that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an older gentleman,
Yeah.
I believe, and things like that. But I just want to
Yeah.
promise you this. And look at the cameras. Everyone is going to be safe this year. Is that we're going to kill them with kindness,
Yeah.
things like that. And I think a lot of people, if you are worrying about your safety, I know that we're going to make sure.
Yeah,
that
by
our
coming to
volunteers-
is Pride safe to go to? Yeah.
Because I want to secure it, and I'm even that we're going to make it the safest, most enjoyable experience
Yeah.
we can.
Right.
And so by being resilient doesn't mean we have to be violent or forceful.
Right.
It just shows that we're not scared.
That's right. And I
we're not
like
gonna hide.
to, I don't know that we've ever talked about this. Maybe we have on air. During COVID, your younger brother, who our listeners and viewers have met last season, essentially threw a Pride parade for you with like a drive-by car
Really?
parade.
Yes, he
That's
did.
During
amazing.
COVID.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it was
Yeah.
really
Awesome.
cool. And that has, I think about that a lot for a lot of reasons.
Yeah,
But one of the reasons
so
I
cool.
think about it is that Pride can be what you need. Like from an event perspective, Pride can be what you need it to be, right? You can march, you can stand on the sidelines, you can sit in your car, you can
Yeah.
stream it, right? It's
You
whatever.
can volunteer.
You can
Yeah,
volunteer.
No,
You can
please come
volunteer to keep the brand.
Yeah.
Right, fundraising, because we're still doing fundraising
Right.
and
Yeah.
like things like that. And the one thing
Yeah.
I love about the downtown partnership, I've had so many of the small businesses be like, where I was nervous because of all the media we're getting against certain members of our community. I was like, who's going to support us? And this goes back to the gossiping thing. It's like, and then going directly and talking to these owners of these businesses,
Yeah.
not listening to rumors and things like that, and finding out, we would love to. We've always supported you. Let me know what we can do. And it's just like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, we're really joining a community. Like, there's more people out there than just like our allies in small business also are rallying
There's a
with
lot
us.
of
Right.
allyship.
The
Yeah.
loudest
Yeah.
voices in the room are often not the majority of
Yes.
voices in the room. So as we start thinking about wrapping, I'd love to let you both kind of talk about what do you need? Like if folks are wanting to really embrace allyship and community, what are some suggestions? What do you need from folks this year?
I mean, I think folks showing up with their talent, whatever it may
Yeah.
be, is really helpful. Because sometimes you don't have money to give, but you have a skill, right?
Yeah.
Like
Tables, we need tables.
yeah, physically
And there's like tattoos. Like, we're not asking necessarily for money. We know money's tight right now.
Right.
Why haven't our egg prices dropped? I'm just still waiting for
Yeah.
that. Anyway,
Yeah.
thanks for my groceries. Like, maybe
Yeah.
take out like our credit cards for groceries today. But point being is, like, we're not asking for necessarily money. Like, we have Autumn at 3 Grace Tattoo. She's going to be doing a tattoo.
Oh, I
piercing
love
event.
Autumn. Yeah.
I love Autumn.
she's on the board too.
Yeah.
Autumn. Anyway, but the point being is, like, I think people assume it's just a financial thing, and we don't get paid. Like, when the board of directors, like,
Yeah, nobody gets paid.
No, and it's one of those things is that we just need, whether it's a safe place, like we were talking about, a safe place where people can meet for coffee.
Yep.
We have the Noodle Bar locked in for a drag show.
Cool.
And they were Jira, thank you, and Ashley down at the Key Room. But just sometimes we need supplies.
Yep.
Like, and things like that. And if
Yeah.
you do have money and you do want to donate, You can also write that off on your taxes, because what are we, you're a 501?
Yeah, so we're a nonprofit, and you can get like a letter back showing that you made a donation.
Oh, yeah.
And you can write that off on your taxes. So like, even if you're one of those people who need to get rid of some money to charity, we would love to take your support. And we promise that it's just going to go to great use, like merchandise.
Yeah.
And there's like some smaller like fundraising things going on too, like the
Yeah.
block one that's coming
I
up,
love my
right?
block, yeah.
So you like buy a block and you decorate the block, and the
Mhm.
blocks are going to be out for like decoration. I think it's what, $5, $10?
It's $10. Yeah.
$10, right? So like, I mean, at any level for that like financial level
Yeah.
of support to like help just make sure it happens. I mean, we talked a little bit about
Mhm.
insurance before, and that's one of the like most bizarre things, like having been in
So
this
weird.
role for almost 8 years, like the way that insurance has gone up for events is really wild, you know.
Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
a big event, like it involves closing streets and
Yes.
you know, public spaces and all those things. So so insurance is a little bit high.
We will make sure when this episode airs, we will put links. I'm pointing like I'm an influencer, but yeah, we'll put all kinds of links and make sure our listeners know where to go, who to go to, and just to offer their support. Because I know that I joke, we don't have any listeners. We have a lot of listeners.
You do
So
have a lot of listeners.
I'm
give some credit.
yeah,
You
so
guys
I
are-
know.
You're awesome.
Yeah, I know they're going to want to help out. So thank you both for coming so much and talking this up and talking to us about it and touching on these pieces of allyship and resilience.
And
Final
I just
thoughts,
wanted to share
yeah.
one more thing too. We're also going to be linking up with the animal shelters. We're going to also be showing off adoptable dogs.
I love that.
Yeah, Carrie, she has a great grooming place right up the road. She and her wife are going to be helping out with ramps, and also we're going to be doing like adoptable dogs.
Cool.
So we just wanted to share that too.
Yeah.
So by our community, we're also going to help other communities.
I love
such
that.
as our shelter animals.
Well,
which I'm really excited about.
I know we're pup people, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Soren, thank you so much for helping us with this conversation. Last thought, last word, I'll give it to you.
I am so glad that there are members of the community still willing to put on events in a turbulent environment. And I think it's important to still maintain that this is normal, right? And like, we need to start denormalizing hate and normalizing love, which is the whole like idea. But yeah.
Thank you, Soren. I've been Chris McLaughlin.
I've been Soren Peterson.
Thanks to our guests.
Yes.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
The Inspired Insights podcast has been brought to you by Inspired Consulting Group, LLC.
Edited and produced by Amanda Seidel and Derek Carter.
Marketing support for the Inspired Insights podcast by Elizabeth Keenan. Music by Derek Carter.
Please visit www.inspiredcg.com to learn more. Copyright 2025, all rights reserved.